Hey people, Shaman Hawk here for Shamanic Lodge. I've recently signed on to this TikTok. Interesting phenomenon there. So, especially for a technosaur like me, right? You know, so it's interesting too, some of the creativity, some of the subjects that come up in these very, very quick videos because they're only like 15 seconds or a minute. So, one of the things that came up I was looking at yesterday was the term starseed. I mean, I haven't heard this term since early or mid 80s, really, you know. So, but within the metaphysical realms, some of these topics, recirculate, come back around for whatever, and become the new trend, I guess maybe every generation, something like that. So I figured I'd talk a little bit about that. The star seed, the way that most of the people are relaying it in their definitions, are you from another star system? Have you lived someplace else within the universe or another galaxy or whatever like that? All right. Well, that immediately takes us into the topic of reincarnation. Because if you live there and you live here now, you've been reincarnated, right? So I would think that if you're going to believe in reincarnation, which I definitely do, then you would have to also say that, well, it's possible that you live someplace else. You would also have to say, well, it's possible too that you lived as another species. And when we say someplace else, that means just not on this planet. If we can live around in the different cultures, in the countries, in different time periods, then why wouldn't we be able to live in other star systems, and um, then it goes time period gets a whole new meaning and so on. I would have to say that's a definite yes. I mean, it just makes sense to me. With past life regressions, and I can say yes, because of my past life regressions, because of things that were discovered, that I discovered or I learned about later on, then I can say, oh, I didn't know that before the regression, consciously, and then I learned this, so that would give me a confirmation that my past life regression was accurate. When I've taken other people through past life regressions, and they come up with other historical facts or no, I'm sorry, historical sites and instances that they're not familiar with consciously, then I'd have to say, well, go ahead and research that. And if they research it and they go tell you, hey, look at this book, yeah, that's how long ago I studied Starseed when people were still looking at books. So they find these facts and they go, historically, yeah, my past life regression was correct. Well, then that gets to be a little bit more difficult, at this time period, on this physical plane consciously. Keep having to throw this in there, right? Because what historically do we have, about these other star systems and so on? I mean, we have to also remember that a lot of the stars that we're looking at now, out in the night sky, don't exist anymore. We're still looking at the light that's traveling towards us, at this time. They could be gone, you know. So the only thing I can look at is back in, I think it was 1972, I was doing some of my own regression work. And I was always, I've been a Trekkie start since 1964 when it first came out. My dad was part of in the Air Force, part of NASA, um, so the stars and all this other stuff was always a thing for me and every other, boy of a military family. So yeah, I was just wondering about space. Have I ever been out there before, and so on. So here I am, a young teen in 1972, and doing my own past life regression, and just looking through, in my visions, flying through space, and it was interesting to see stars of different colors. Now, remember we landed on the moon in 1969, and all we really had was encyclopedias that were published years before, so information was not that quickly updated. So I was seeing stars of different colors. And then one time I saw stars going around each other. And I had mentioned that to some people and they're like, no, that's impossible. Like, oh, okay. So I wondered, of course I go into the self-doubt, like, oh, did I really see that? Was I really blah, blah, blah. Well, now, I mean, binary star systems are just kind of like so normal and they're talked about all the time. And it doesn't have to be stars of the same basic configuration. They could be like red giant and white dwarf, and eventually they end up colliding, but so now this is like normal stuff. So now I go, oh wow, way back then, my past life regression, vision, whatever, I saw this, it was kind of shot down, and nowadays, it's like, oh yeah, that's normal stuff. So that's kind of how we can go with confirmation per se. And like I said, I'm always really cautious about saying anything is a definite because we can call it that, and when we label it as a definite or a fact or whatever, our search, for more information will often stop. And to me, that's not good. So, all that said, then going back to the starseed, it's like, yeah, perhaps that's not really the right term that I would use for that, because that's like star and then seed. Well, seeds don't sprout on stars, me being too stoic, closed-minded, I was recently called, because I still have that farmer mentality when I think about seeds. But seeds do travel, so in this part I'll go along with it. Looking at the different species on the planet, you would have to think, I do anyway, that a lot of maybe DNA had come from space and then kind of got into the life force energy of the Earth and became these different species. I mean, think about it. We got reptilians, we got amphibians, we got ectoskeletons, we got all kinds of stuff here. It's kind of a cool planet to live on. And we have water, dihydrogen monoxide, in liquid form supporting life. That's pretty cool. So the star seed then. So this person to say, and jumping around, the only thing we're really taking with us is memories, and they're kind of buried. I think a lot of the work too, because of social programming, our memories of past lives aren't easily accessible consciously because we still have basically too many apps running up here. Okay, so back into starseed, a person can be moving around and then end up on like Earth, and then things can trigger other memories, or there can be this reaction. Realistically, like I said in another video, that metaphysics and physics, are pretty close together. I think probably the best definition is the metaphysics hasn't really been proven with scientific instruments, controlled experiments, and all this other stuff yet. So the person can come here on Earth, and then because of the life force energy of the Earth, all kinds of other things, memories come up, and depending on the culture this person is living in, that could be a good thing or a really bad thing. Remember, not long ago, the most educated people on the planet thought for sure, an absolute fact, that the Earth, was the center of the solar system. The sun revolved around it, and our solar system was the center of the universe. And they would kill you if you believed differently. So this is where there can be a huge conflict in a person who could be considered, and I'm just going to label this starseed, as they come to this planet or any others, and they start to come out with this other information, and knowledge, and want to share it, or they start looking at things and, become these great inventors and great minds and so on, because this is a real fertile planet for those things, depending on the culture you're living in. Dogma, it kills everything, right? So that's my kind of opinion on some starseeds. How do you know if you're a starseed? I don't think anybody can really give you a complete list. I've heard things like, well, if you feel out of place, on this planet. All right, well, and I like to go to the other end of things too. So, okay, yeah, you feel out of place on this planet. You have a completely different way of looking at things. In the middle of that spectrum, we're going to say, okay, well, maybe you're just really psychic. Maybe you have a great Earth attachment, and a connection, and you see through a lot of the programming and other social bullshit. And on the far end of that, maybe you're just like totally psychotic and you need a therapist, So when I look at things, I like to go all the way to this side, all the way to this side, and somewhere in the middle, and call that a possible reality, a possible truth. So, um, being really good at hands-on healing, being really psychic and things like that, yeah, that could just be really a good earth attachment, really being in tune with your humanity. Um, I mean, so a lot of these skills that people have, and yet you can grow these skills like anything else, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're from someplace else. Maybe you're just really in tune with who you are right now and where you are at this moment. You know, because it seems within the New Age community, the metaphysical arena, if you have any other skills, because you're someplace, you're an alien, you're cool, you know, you're an alien, you're off planet. Instead of just taking the credit for being really good in your own human connection, you know. So that's about all I got. Catch you guys later.